Yes, very good morning to you, Grenada. Belated though it may be, I see here that we're about 4 minutes late, 4.5 minutes late. Please forgive me, but we had some difficulty in logging on to Facebook this morning. Don't know what happened there, but it was hard to get on to Facebook. Anyhow, I'm glad to see that you folks are here. I thank you very much for joining me for the final edition of Good Day Grenada for this week. Today happens to be the 22nd day of the month, and I'm George Grant. Now, folks, since we've already lost 5 minutes and 7 seconds, let's get cracking. Okay, let's get cracking. First of all, some good news and bad news. The body of Alphonsus Antoine has been missing. You've heard that name over and over the past few days. Yeah, the body was found yesterday, actually, and we'll tell you a bit about that in just a wee bit. Then I have a little piece here, very short, but it's captioned, "Breakdancing is set to become an Olympic sport." What does that mean? Yeah, you'll probably smile when you hear that. And then I have another interesting piece that I got from one of our local television stations last night. It's called "Grenville Calls for a Facelift." Yeah? Um, yeah, Grenville calls for a facelift. That's going to be an interesting piece. Interesting piece. Yes. And so, after that, we've got the national report for you. And I see that we're still not showing up on Facebook. My goodness, I don't know what happened there this morning, but for whatever reason, so far, Facebook's a no-no, but thank goodness the program's being recorded. And we, there's a note all the way from Quebec saying, "Where are you? It's 8:05. Yeah, and Quebec's 1 hour behind us. Well, we're here. We're going to publish this a little later on today, so we're terribly sorry about that. After the national report this morning, you'll find out about a place where cabinet members actually get paid to keep quiet. Yeah? Yeah. That's a little excerpt from the program we did last night. For those of you who joined us last night on MeckWe Chat, you probably saw this. And I thought I'd pull out a little bit for you. We'll tell you a wee bit more about that as the morning goes on. Okay? So, hang in there, hang in there. And my apologies again if you have to wait until later on today to see this program. Well, it's because we had or are having a tough time getting onto Facebook this morning. Now, let's start with the sad news and the good news. The body of Alphonsus Antoine was found yesterday afternoon. I was actually on the road when I received a WhatsApp that the body had been found. This gentleman is or was a 79-year-old resident of Lansopine, and he was found yesterday at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Apparently, there were a lot of people out there searching. I understand there were about 75 persons who were involved in the search, and the body was actually found just about 500 yards from his home in Lansopine. That's in the Coral Cove area on the south of the island. I did hear a comment which said that apparently this gentleman had been showing early signs of dementia. Okay? Growing old, growing old. Let's make the most of what we have while we're still alive. Then, I also want to take a moment to extend my condolences to friend of mine, Patrick Antoine. Patrick was the former ambassador, Grenada's former ambassador to the OECS. He's an economist, very prominent figure in the region, and had been working with the government of Grenada for some time and decided to finally move on. Patrick, please accept my condolences. I've been trying to reach you, but I can imagine you're probably inundated with phone calls and WhatsApps and messengers and all of that. Be strong, my friend. Be strong. Now, breakdancing at the Olympic Games. Are you ready for this? The organizers of the Parisian installment of the world's greatest sporting event have announced breakdancing as a potential new sport. Yeah, you heard right. According to the head of the 2024 organizing committee, a gentleman by the name of Tony Estanque, the proposal is in part an attempt to make the games more urban and more realistic. The sport, and I'm quoting here, I'm quoting here from something which I came across online last night, okay? The sport will be one of 4 being proposed to the International Olympic Committee, along with surfing, climbing, and skateboarding. The ICO, that's the International Committee, they must reach a decision on its inclusion by December 2020. News of the announcement has been, not surprisingly, news of the announcement has been greeted with shock and surprise by sports fans on Twitter, with some actually suggesting this must be an early April Fool's Day joke. Yeah. You heard it. Yeah. Breakdancing going to the Olympics. Well, such is life. Such is life. Now, finally, in our little introduction here this morning, Grenville calls for a facelift. This is a clip which I saw on MTV last night. I wish to thank them for it. And it's self-explanatory, so check this out.
The second largest town in Grenville is the home for a number of residential and business properties. Grenville is also known as L'Abbe, its former French name. Unlike some areas in the city of St. George, the town of St. Andrew still has some of its old architectural buildings standing. As our news team rove around Grenville on Thursday, the question posed was, is the second largest town ready for a facelift?
Just from my opinionated point of view, I believe that the government of the day should have been doing a lot more for the people of St. Andrews than currently what is happening. As a matter of fact, nothing is really happening in St. Andrews, especially St. Andrews, which is the breadbasket, which is the little land of agriculture. For example, when you look at the bus terminus, it is incomplete. And they always like to do it kind of half waiting for St. Andrews. St. Andrews people shouldn't be left as if it's the remnant. St. Andrews people should be considered part of Grenada, and I think a lot more attention should be given to the people of St. Andrews. For example, the Market Square, up to today, that place hasn't been blessed. Up to today, no ceremonial event has taken place to say, well, all right, let me do something official. Plus, a lot of other areas in St. Andrews need development, but no attention is being given.
Well, I find like they're doing everything in St. George's. We need hotels. We need more work, more facilities to help the youths, like employ workers and them kind of things, and more restaurants, more hotels in St. Patrick and St. Andrews. The schools, strengthen up the school, the hospital, and we need more night schools and things for the children. To get them out of the street, we need night schools.
Well, I would like to see more shops, better restaurant in Grenville, because you don't have much restaurant in Grenville as what we have in St. George's. and all these things. Yeah, well, the things that need to address in Grenville here is like the sanitation, like the toilets and things like that, you know. It's terrible, yeah. You know, you find people going along the street and weeing on the street, and Grenville smells so bad, you know, some places, not everywhere. You know, they got to look into this, yeah.
Yeah, there you have it. That's my old hometown, La Bay. That's where I grew up a long, long time ago. Haven't been to Grenville in a couple of years, actually. It's a great little town, and I'm glad to see that the people are apparently getting a little bit stirred up. They want to see some action up there in La Bay. Alrighty, folks, I'll tell you what. Let's take our first little break now, and then we'll come on back with the National Report.
CARICOM officials meet to discuss regional strategy for the development of statistics. We'll have details to this story and more in the National Report. With the details to the news for Thursday, February 21st, I am Rikisha St. Louis. Representatives from a number of CARICOM countries spent the day in a regional statistics seminar at the Grenada Trade Center, just one day before Friday's third high-level forum on statistics at the same venue. Thursday's exercise was held under the theme, Investing in Statistics to Build Resilience and to Achieve Sustainable Economic Growth and Development in the Caribbean Community. Director of Statistics Helen Brizan stressed the timeliness of the meeting that already has the support of CARICOM heads.
This meeting is quite timely as we seek to advance the regional strategy for the development of statistics, which is a strategy that has received full endorsement by all CARICOM heads of government after our Prime Minister, the Prime Minister of Grenada, has presented on behalf of the Standing Committee of Caribbean Statisticians.
Brizan says developing the statistical systems of CARICOM is a critical process. He is optimistic that the recommendations from Thursday's seminar will improve the discussions for heads of government on the way forward for statistics.
As citizens of CARICOM, we are all users of statistics and hence all have a stake in its development. I would therefore like to encourage you to take part in the discussion as the main findings and recommendation from today will be presented at tomorrow's high-level forum, and I'm sure it would influence future submissions to the CARICOM heads of government on the issue of statistics.
The seminar focused on areas such as leadership and management, statistical standards and harmonization, statistical literacy, strengthening admin data, and gender mainstreaming. Meanwhile, Prime Minister Dr. The Right Honorable Keith Mitchell will deliver remarks at the start of Friday's high-level forum, which has been held against the backdrop of the recent endorsement by CARICOM heads of government of the framework for the regional strategy for the development of statistics. This seeks to strengthen and improve the availability of quality statistics for evidence-based decision-making in Grenada and other CARICOM member states. Addressing his CARICOM colleagues at the last Heads of Government Conference in Jamaica, Dr. Mitchell commended efforts at the regional level to pursue a CARICOM strategy for the advancement of regional statistics. At this week's forum, statistics stakeholders in Grenada and their CARICOM counterparts will brainstorm how to operationalize the strategic framework of the regional strategy. They will also discuss resource mobilization support for international development partners for the upgrade of statistics throughout CARICOM. This is the National Report. We'll have more news after the break.
A taste of spice, welcoming our cricketers and fans to Pure Grenada, the Isle of Spice, showcasing our culture and heritage on Tuesday, 26 February on the Carnage in St. George's, England versus the West Indies. Cricket Rest Day. Come enjoy a taste of spice. Performances from top soca and calypso artists, pan, drummers, dancers, a mini carnival parade, arts and craft, and local food. From 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. The Carnage is the place to be. It's cricket, lovely cricket. Rest Day, Tuesday, 26th February. Sample a taste of spice. Hosted by the Grenada Cultural Foundation. No unauthorized vending allowed.
Welcome back. The National Disaster Management Agency, NADMA, has made a clarion call for Grenadians to act now to cushion the effects of the prolonged dry spell that is facing the Caribbean. Acting Coordinator Sylvan McIntyre says Grenada is being faced by the inevitable. Stakeholders are collaborating with NADMA to boost the education campaign on preparation and prevention during the dry season. The agency says the drier the conditions, the more vulnerable the country becomes to fires, diseases, and drought. According to McIntyre, the forecast does not present any hope of improvement in the near future, but increased hurricanes, earthquakes, rising sea levels, and floods.
What are the things are we likely to face? It is widely established that hurricanes will become more ferocious, that earthquakes shall come with greater frequency, and those will come with more intensity as we go through. Water will evaporate more rapidly. Our seas are likely to rise more and encroach on our land space and erode our wonderful beaches. Our rivers and streams will deplete because the atmosphere is expected to be hotter. When there is the existence of hotter climate and conditions, more evaporation, it means that the need for water will be more evident and critical.
Finally, staff at the Inland Revenue Division is intensifying efforts towards the process of completing personal income tax returns for the period 2019. Public officers at the ministerial complex on Thursday, February 21st, benefited from an engagement session facilitated by the staff of the IRD, who provided assistance to them in filling out their personal income tax return forms. Public Relations Officer at the Inland Revenue Division, Karen Maureen Alexander, spoke of the importance of the activity and the deadline, which is fast approaching.
We are here at the ministerial complex engaging public officers in assisting them with filling up their returns, their personal income tax returns. We're in the filing period. The deadline is this year, April 1st, because March 31st falls on a weekend. So it's close to the deadline, so we're facilitating persons here at the ministerial complex in assisting them rather than them coming to the office, and we meet them halfway in assisting them with their returns.
Maureen Alexander added that the response from the persons engaged thus far is overwhelming and that such an engagement is convenient to both parties.
Persons are happy because we have a parking issue at the Ministry of Finance. So when you come over there, it's highly unlikely that you might get a park, and you might have to be going round and about to find park, and also the long lines that might be at the division as well. So meeting them here, it's more convenient for them and, well, convenient for us as well in reducing the amount of persons that come to the office to get help.
The division seeks to facilitate other businesses and schools in St. George, and persons are encouraged to visit the Inland Revenue Division's YouTube page, which provides guidelines on the process.
We're doing other business places as well. We're doing schools as well. So if the schools in St. George's, we are going to facilitate them and so forth. Why we're doing that really is to reduce the amount of persons that come into the division for assistance. We also have a video online, a YouTube video, so they can go on the Inland Revenue Division page on YouTube and they can get a guide as to how to fill up their returns.
That story just ended the national report for today, Thursday, February 21st. Recapping the top story. CARICOM officials meet to discuss regional strategy for the development of statistics. On behalf of all those who made this newscast possible, I am Rikisha St. Louis saying thank you for joining us. Until next time.
Hey, Lynn.
Hey, neighbor.
Here's the bill I asked you to pay for me.
How did you get your electricity bill to be so low?
For one, we size our transformers just for what we need. And we unplug transformers, chargers, and other devices when they're not in use. We also replaced our light bulbs with LEDs.
They burn less energy, right?
Much less. I even replaced the seal on my refrigerator door to keep the cold air in.
And Grenville is always advising us not to open the fridge too often.
That's right. And my family washes and irons in bulk.
With fuel prices changing all the time, how do you know if it is working?
We pay attention to the usage history table. Over time, our average usage has decreased.
So while Grenada can't control fuel prices, I can conserve energy and save money.
Grenville, energizing our Grenada.
I'm always on the move. Training, traveling, competing. So it's good to know I have Co-op Bank in the palm of my hand.
Introducing e-banking, one of many customer convenience services from Grenada Cooperative Bank, and there's more to come.
It's swift, simple, and secure.
Welcome home.
Together with you, our customers, we energize our community.
Together with you, we energize our economy.
We are working together to give our nation a better tomorrow.
With you, we energize our future. Together, we energize our nation.
Thank you for partnering with us as we energize our Spice Island.
Renlec, energizing our Grenada.
Isn't that a bummer? Isn't that a bummer? I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm not going to be able to hear your comments this morning. I'm terribly sorry about that. Anyhow, we had a lot of fun on last night's edition of McWe Chat. Sorry you couldn't be there with us. Didn't discuss a lot of local stuff, but we talked about the St. Vincent election petitions, the case they're having up there. That's a scorcher. Talked about electioneering in Dominica, term limits for government, and a whole lot more. Okay? Yeah. We had the usual suspects with us as well. Jerry George. Jerry was out there in St. Vincent. Beverly was here in Grenada. Margaret was out there in the Big Apple, New York. Catherine Edwards was in London. And last night we had a rare visit from Athy Martin. And Athy was in Dominica last night. Well, that's where he lives, okay? Here's a little excerpt in which we briefly touched on a number of different areas, including how in some places cabinet members get paid to keep quiet. Check it out. All right, guys, just before I turn it back over to you, I see some comments here. And by the way, Beverly, do you realize what we're seeing here tonight? You know, we kid Margaret about eating a lot on the program. Well, take a look.
Atiman.
Take a look.
It is comfortable as cucumber.
You know, I think we better start doing this program in restaurants. You know, look.
Well, I game for that, you know. Look at it.
Yeah.
It's a cake.
I mean,
Look at that.
Everybody here.
That's old-fashioned bread pudding.
Oh, I see. Okay.
With topping and jam and raisins.
All right, folks. Antoine Wilders Lewis, a little while ago when I said I didn't know who these folks were, he said, I am a former PRO of the Labour Party when the great leader Rosie Douglas was the leader. I'm from Portsmouth. You know? Don't talk with your mouth full, please. I hope your mother taught you that. Then Murray Jew says, great program. Early in the morning, Jerry S. George. Why can't we have 2 terms administration in the Caribbean? Well, Jerry, you want to answer that?
No, listen, the more I think about this, is the more I give the founding fathers so much credit for their wisdom. The U.S. founding fathers realized they probably better understood human nature than we do. And they realized, you know what? 2 terms is long enough. Because beyond that... Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think most Caribbean people, I would say, are in favor of term limits. But the politicians are not in favor of term limits.
No, but at the end of the day, we're the ones who should make that demand, not them.
No,
but we don't.
Term limits was one of the things which came out of real
consultation on constitution reform back in the day when the late Junior McIntosh was doing the constitution reform thing. It's one of the recommendations that went in because the people did ask for term limits, and it went in 2 term limits, and it came out 3 consecutive terms. And everybody look at it and they say, they think we're stupid or what?
Yep.
We said
I want to
2
disagree
terms.
with Margaret. Most Caribbean people probably still do agree with term limits, but there's an important segment of Caribbean society that has emerged over the last 2 or 3 decades, which is the professional class, a certain part of the business class, a certain part of the clergy, etc., who have discovered a largesse from long-term presence in public office.
Okay.
They have latched onto that, and they are the opinion shapers in the Caribbean today. So I agree with you. In numbers, I would say yes, most Caribbean people see the benefits of it, but there's the greedy class. You used to have the rich class and the poor class. Now you have a greedy class that wants their partners to be there as long as possible. That is their ticket to wealth.
Yeah.
Max Walker says we are definitely in favor of term limits. I'm not sure where Max is. Antoine Wilders.
Yes, he's in the U.S.
He's in the U.S. Antoine Wilders Lewis says the politicians, once they get a taste of power and the perks under the table, they don't want to let go.
Remember blue lightis, George?
Pardon?
Remember blue lightis?
yes. Dwayne Hutchinson says, he says, leaders these days care about themselves and not the youths. Is we that put you there, not the Indian. Is like Grenada is an Indian country? Pro Lucas Ann says the ingredients in the Caribbean political pots are very, very similar. The people are eating the same food.
Very true.
Yeah, it is true.
Very true.
And that is why I say these wild animals called political parties, which rise up to take over the state, it needs to be the other way around. They need to become subject to and under the control of the state. So you have the parties, people who believe they want to become MPs, go and register with either of them. But there will be no party campaigning and whatever, the way they carry on and behave now. I have a whole outline of how they should operate.
You mean you got your own constitution?
Constitutional reform is a must, you know. It is a must.
If you have your own.
And that's why I'm telling you that reform is a must.
But there's another sobering fact that we have to take account of. I've just read the critical analysis and assessment of the Caribbean, of the Citizenship by Investment program in the Caribbean, and how it's creating great unease in the Middle East, etc., etc. There are some numbers here. Simple arithmetic. Over the last 5 years or so, the average number of new economic citizens for St. Kitts was 2,000 per year. In Dominica, the average number was 2,500. In most of the other jurisdictions, it was somewhere between 1,000 and 1,500. Add up these numbers and let us realize, even while we shilly-shally and take our time about resolving these important questions of constitution and what works, what doesn't work, and so forth, there's a whole new body of persons who are now Caribbean, carrying our passports. And we were just talking about an election situation in St. Vincent where one vote makes the difference. We are talking, people, about tens of thousands of new voters who are Chinese,
that
who are Latin, who are Asian, who are Russian, and I believe you me, that is the bold future that those people who want unlimited time as politicians, that is the bold future that they are looking at as their ticket to being government with no term limits. And those people, those new citizens, are themselves going to be beholden to those politicians, because that is how they became citizens in our countries.
Like I saw this very interesting story after with an Egyptian activist who is asking his online followers to help him to get Dominican citizenship.
Absolutely.
And they say if he succeeds, it would not have been the first time Dominica has rescued someone in this way.
Here's a twist. You know, you see that young girl, that young British girl, who's trying to get back into UK? You see that young American girl who's trying to get back into the US? Let us for a moment imagine that they both fail, and that there are hundreds of them like that who went and spent time with ISIS. In our case, all it takes to get a home in the Caribbean is the moolah.
And you don't need much.
And you don't really need that much. So we are overexposed. That is why this unraveling of this, modicum of democracy that we have places us in a highly vulnerable situation, which makes climate change look like a Sunday afternoon picnic. Because
I think we are going to quickly run out of time, and we want to hear about the 13 minus 1.
We are able to home by you.
Oh my goodness. Again, but it speaks to what Jerry, you and all of us have been speaking to tonight in a real sense, is that when politicians begin to not only take their population for granted, but to begin to detest and to revile their population to the point where they feel they can disrespect the population in our faces.
In your faces, right.
That is what happens. The polls done by Peter Wickham and his crew for the Dominica Labour Party over the last several months show them losing. It showed them winning maybe 8 seats some months ago, then it went to 7, then it went to 6, and the last poll, the latest poll, shows the Labour Party winning only 5 seats. That is Peter Wickham's Labour Party paid for poll. The recommendation that came from Hartley Henry and Peter Wickham was, you have to do something drastic. You have to signal that you are turning a new leaf, that you have changed course, and that it is not you that have caused Dominica to languish. It is those other people in your cabinet, etc., and you're going to bring in fresh blood. And as a matter of fact, it is not just the opposition that can find good women candidates. We too have a gender agenda. And so he has, out of 21, he had 13 new candidates. He got rid of several senior ministers, and I'll come back to that in a second. Out of the 13, he had 9 women. Unprecedented in Dominica's history. And to the unsuspecting, it looks like cause for celebration. Finally, women have broken through the ceiling and this, da, 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 da. And the discourse changes away from a new term that the IMF has coined to describe Dominica in its last Article 4 report, that the Dominican economy is in debt distress.
Yep.
And maybe by 2032, it would be resolved. And
32, you said, right?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. And in bold type, for every conclusion and recommendation, the IMF, for the first time in my reading their reports over the last 12, 15 years, they put in bold, and the authorities agreed with this assessment. But the IMF is taking no chances of having them be blamed. Okay? All right.
Hold on, Ati, there's another reason too. Hold on, Ati. Let me just point this out. There's another reason too. And the other reason is because of what is happening in St. Kitts, where St. Kitts has refused to lay before, to allow them to lay the findings of the last Article 4.
Before, yeah.
So they're doing these press conferences now and pointing that out. So in other words, they can't go and hide it and say they don't know about it and blame the IMF. This is what St. Kitts is doing.
So back to the 13. So the idea behind this, it's a strategy to try to distract attention away from what's really happening in the economy, and parallel that with giving a sense that something new is about to happen, that change is about to be poured in from the top. Unfortunately, a couple of things have accompanied this that have not quite yet made it to the media. You've heard of political leaders offering cash packages to candidates to get them to agree to run. That's not right. That they would give them $500,000, pay off their mortgage, pay off this, that's called the entry package. And it has become the norm.
Yep.
Certainly here. And some of these packages approach 6 figures.
Wow.
But now, there's a new nuancing of that. There's now an exit package.
Oh?
Because when you're getting rid of senior members of a cabinet, not one at a time, but in a cluster, in a group, you have to keep them quiet. You have to prevent them from opening up and speaking out. And the data will come out shortly, but there have been some very handsome exit packages negotiated by some of these ministers, including...
No gold watches, Basi? Ati? The gold watches?
No, it's more than that. Gold watches are passé. I mean, Rolex. Who wants a Rolex? No, these include things like full cost of graduate and postgraduate universities, full mortgage, amortizations, and so on, and so on, and so on. This is to get them to leave without fussing. Because we are now hearing that a possible date for the election could be May 7th, which means this being what, February 20, whatever the date today is, 21st. It means you have February, you have March, you have April. So you have kind of a 2.5 month period during which you have to run the country. Cabinet must meet. Who are you going to put in the cabinet? How are you going to assuage and save face for those that you've caused to leave the cabinet? And out of the 13, there's not one of them, unfortunately. And this is a commentary on our society for still keeping women in the lower levels of management throughout. Not one of them. come to the table with any remotely relevant work experience.
Yep.
So how do you shape a cabinet? And traditionally, you would use a quick entry into cabinet, even for a month or two, in this case, to sort of allow the person to showcase themselves as a leader, as a manager, as a policy maker. That kind of experimentation with governance is going to happen at a time when we are being described as being in economic and debt distress.
That's right.
Women in Dominica are being urged, and I am basically urging them to address this forthrightly and objectively, and don't take a kind of a, just a kind of a straight line gender approach on this. Frankly, it turns out you don't even have to tell people that. Hard work pays off. Repetition pays off. Treating people with respect pays off. Giving people credit for being able to think things through pays off. And I'm happy to say, I'm seeing that unfolding, that people are not going for that kind of mirage that is being presented. I do believe there are lessons here, just like the St. Vincent election has lessons for us. There are lessons there for us. And that is why we must publicize these things in each other's countries so that once is enough. If it happens here, don't let it happen in St. Vincent and Grenada.
Exactly.
Once is enough. And I shudder at the fact that there are still some members of our intelligentsia and professional class who find it somewhere within their being okay that, it's an opportunity for people to sort of come into their own. None of these women would ever or have ever been given an opportunity to work in any of the businesses owned by the people who are now saying it's okay for them to be given an opportunity to mismanage public affairs. But in their private companies, they wouldn't even give these people a messenger job.
Mm-hmm. So let me come in there, because this is something I kind of mentioned in passing, I think it was on Monday. This business of popularity selection of candidates to run our countries has to stop. In fact, we are past that. What these countries at this point need is somebody more in the mold of a CEO and people who could understand that kind of language and that kind of business. But we have this nonsense now that if a person is popular in a district and they can get elected, when they are selected, the person who is the prime minister then has a problem. I sit down thinking, well, where are you going to put this person here? What portfolio am I going to give it? If it stopped there, it was okay. But many a times, these same people who have, as you say, no experience anywhere, when they get into to the ministry, they want to take over and run things.
Yeah.
And that's where the chaos comes.
And you end up having government by proxy.
Yes.
You have a bunch of so-called consultants running a country, and the other group pretends to run the country. They go to cabinet, they go to parliament, they make all the speeches, but their authority has been emasculated.
But what happens in St. Vincent is that the prime minister is the only person who speaks on every ministry.
But same thing.
I have every ministry, because basically the people there have no experience.
Yeah.
That's why I said something very interesting. Until the election is called, and even after it's called, the country has to function. So is it going to be that the plan is to make these 12 people senators and then give them all the ministerial portfolios?
Absolutely. How else? How else? That is it. That's why the exit packages came into effect, to clear the way for the creation of a whole new cabinet, because he's saying, this is, you ask for change, you tell it to people, This is
This is the change you're getting.
yeah.
I think we should pay attention to some of the comments. I see they're coming in fast and furious. In fact, there's one a little bit earlier that I think was Kamisha. Another thing the founding fathers got right was the separation of powers. PMs in the Caribbean act like little demigods and drama queens, pausing and trying to fix problems. At the same time, with the majority following the PM's will, right or wrong. And that comes to just what we just spoke about here.
Yeah.
Is because when the prime ministers choose these people who have no experience, right, and bring them in, what else do? They have to just follow because they have to stay in his corner, so they just have to follow. They can't bring any sensible contribution to the matter.
They have none.
None.
You heard of monkey see, monkey do?
Yeah.
You remember the Prime Minister of Antigua Barbuda, Gaston Brown, brought his wife into the fray?
Yeah.
Well, the wife of the Prime Minister is, in fact, in the fray. She is one of the 9, and she has been named as one of the candidates for the next election. Monkey see, monkey do.
But hold on, but Gaston Brown is going forward. I understand he's planning to bring in his son.
Absolutely.
And this familial level of politics, that politics in the region is now becoming a family affair, something that the voters and the citizens of this country has to stop, Because what we are doing is entrenching nepotism. And if we entrench nepotism like this, let us not complain down the road. Because we encouraged it. All right? St. Vincent has its own situation of that nature, of that very nature.
Camilo.
And then people, and then people defend it.
Absolutely. And Haiti had it before, remember?
Yes.
Duvalier and Bebe.
And Baby Doc.
All right.
That's
So,
right.
it's
And it didn't end well.
there you go.
Yeah,
But it boggles the mind to imagine how much human thinking time, planning time, discussion time, energy, money goes into. I think it was Catherine who said before about the phrase used. It was constructive error. The task of creating constructive error in the Caribbean requires an investment of a lot of human resource and time. What if 1/4 of that energy were put to creating constructive good, constructive services, constructive things? But we're not getting that. I wanted to show you all this. This is a flyer. I don't know if you can read.
Yeah, just hold it. Yeah, just hold it. Yeah, right. Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is about cannabis. While we're talking about it and flirting with the idea and playing games in Parliament, this is from a US company with a whole range of products available.
Wow.
That you can order online.
Today.
Everything to deal for women, for men, for pain, for skin, for appetite, for all available in EPA approved form and dosage. The same ganja that our region took serious, blows for decades. That ganja has created multi-million-dollar businesses already. And where are we? So the victims of a negative attitude towards ganja are still going to be the victims.
Absolutely.
To end up being the consumers who pay those people for their products. While the energy of the state is spent doing what? Preparing for elections, building posters, doing polls, How much money you said they spent on the election in St. Vincent? 15 million. In Dominica in 2014, they spent 30.
No aspect. I think that's just one aspect of it. They're giving away the treating.
The goodies. Yeah. So that is our disturbing reality, our distressing reality, and fixing it is easy if we have the balls.
Well, there we went. The usual suspects, and that was an excerpt from last night's edition of We Chat, which, by the way, is up on the GrenadaBroadcast.com website. You can go check it out in its entirety, all 2 hours of it. Pilgrims, I'll tell you what, since I don't have you guys to chat with this morning, I'm going to thank you for at least taking the time to come back and watch it later on in the day, whether on Facebook or YouTube. And we're going to pull the curtain down right now, but not before we leave you with a parting word, most important part of this program. Matthew chapter 6, 25 to 34. Therefore, I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothes? Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or stow away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? Can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? See how the flowers of the field grow. They do not labor or spin. Yet, I'll tell you, that not even Solomon in all his splendor was dressed like one of these. If that is how God clothes the grass of the field, which is here today and tomorrow is thrown into the fire, will he not much more clothe you, you of little faith? So do not worry, saying, what shall we drink, or what shall we wear? For the pagans run after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them. But seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. Pilgrims, hey, tough morning, but these things do happen. Thank you so much for coming back to take a peek. Georgie Porgy sending God's blessings your way, and by his grace, I will see you on Sunday morning for the next edition of Sundays with George Grant. And here's hoping that you'll join us again next week for Gudday Grenada. God bless you.